The Galaxy Note 4 was released in late 2014 and it can be considered as one of those smartphones that laid the foundation of the big favorite kind of phones which you are holding now. It was an overall improved device over its plastic predecessor, the Galaxy Note 3, and with the most good looking display on any phone at that time, premium metal build and leather emulating plastic back, which is clever, one of the best smartphone cameras at that time, newer processor, and a lot more. And all that just made the Galaxy Note 4 a phone that will be remembered throughout the smartphone history. Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So let's go ahead and have a look at the Galaxy Note 4 almost 7 years later and how this beast looks in 2021 and how it is still holding up and can it still be usable or not. So the Galaxy Note 4 was released in 2014 as the main Samsung flagship in the Note series, which you may know about that, and it was kind of made according to the market needs or trends which were constantly changing at that time. So that is the reason this was made of aluminum and metal in the design was adapted because the feel and the design was intended to look premium or be premium, although the previous Note was completely made of plastic and there were kind of mixed feelings about this design, like the frame is made of half metal while the back cover is leather looking thin plastic. Of course that was due to removable battery setup, which was nice at that time, especially for some people, but I personally don't like the swappable battery from the beginning. I don't know why, but overall that was a very nice design and it is very comfortable to hold as well because of the slightly curved back and flat screen. Speaking of the specs, which were of course the top at that time, so Snapdragon 805 quad-core 28nm or Exynos 5433 octa-core processor with 3 gigs of RAM, 16 megapixels f2.2 with OIS camera, 3200 mAh battery and 5.7 inches Quad HD 1440p screen. And the screen is still so good that I think it might be better looking than many new phones still in 2021, which is amazing. It is bright, colorful, and with such a high resolution, the icons, the text looks so sharp. Video watching is still such a pleasure with its big size. So this was clearly the most gorgeous screen on any smartphone at that time, and that was one of the biggest reasons of the success of this phone back in 2014. Of course in 2021 it looks outdated, not in terms of the display quality but the design, like the big bezels and not a higher refresh rate, but it still looks so good, like there is nothing to say about that. The software is as usual the sad story of this phone. I mean, it was not supported for a long from Android 4 to Android 6 and with no major changes in the UI, the TouchWiz UI, which I didn't like at all. It was colorful as the trend was and was quite customizable as well, but it was very laggy and slow, although the processor put up much effort. From the performance perspective, it was a fast phone at that time just because of the newer processor, but the software was not good enough to support. There were some improvements in the multitasking and opening 2 windows or 2 apps at the same time, which was made just for this big display and the Note nature of this phone, but that was also not quite reliable, I remember. The camera on the Note 4 is a 16 megapixels camera with OIS, and again it was one of the best cameras on a phone at that time and it did a good job. The picture quality was superb, a lot of sharpness in the photos and it captures much detail with good dynamic range, but that was like 7 years back and now it is pretty bad looking in front of the new cameras. Just how so many things have evolved in the smartphone cameras and how interesting this kind of old cameras look now, which we were praising a lot like 7 years ago. The video quality is also excellent with 4K video option. During video, OIS works perfectly and yeah, that was the best smartphone camera. Okay, the battery life was also good enough. I would say for the Exynos model, it was average or maybe below average with 3 hours of screen on time. So obviously the screen is big and bright and the battery size was not enough for that, although it was a big battery 3200 mAh. But with the Qualcomm variant the battery life was excellent, much better, like 5 hours of screen on time. And now it is, I think, poor, but if someone keeps this phone for whatever reason, he will be okay, I think. And also there is the removable option and fast charging as well. So there it is, the Galaxy Note 4, and can you still use it? It is pretty much usable still. I think it's not completely trash and might be far from being useless because it still can make phone calls and messages, and the call quality is just good. The software is kind of outdated and soon there will be no app support, and some apps may already be not supported on this, but if your brand still insists you to keep it, then you should look for a custom software which will prevent it from being obsolete. In terms of the software, it is pretty cheap as well, like $80 or less than, or maybe 100, but I will not recommend it because there are a lot of options there in the similar price range. But no doubt this was a very excellent phone and will be considered throughout the smartphone history. Like, it had so much in terms of the features, for example, a removable battery, SD card support, S Pen, which I personally not a big fan of, but it is definitely a useful feature for many people I know, and have a very loud, slightly distorted speaker with some unusual placement, heart rate sensor, headphone jack, etc., and also a swipeable fingerprint sensor, which I'm curious how people at that time got used to it. So let me know in the comments below if you have used a Galaxy Note 4 and what is your thought about this, one of the best ever smartphone in the industry. And if you are still using one, also let me know. It will be very interesting for me. And how is your experience with it? So thanks again everyone for watching, and please be sure to subscribe and hit that like. I will see you in the next one.